Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another great edition of ConnectWise. Well, we're sharing all the information we can, but all about the ConnectWise economy. I'm Sean Lardo. I am the community or the economy evangelist for ConnectWise here. Today's conversation will really be very much involved with something that's really strong in our space and in our actual network, which is our Evolve program, but how our certified integrators blend into this and how they're part of everything. Now, for those of you that don't know what certified integrators are, this is something that these vendors all go through as a process to become that they're getting certified from us through various pieces with integrations, along with security checks and whatnot. This is ConnectWise's way of giving you the ability to, when you're shopping for a certain set of tools, to limit it down to the ones that we've actually vetted out for you guys, make it a little bit easier for you all. They're all part of our marketplace. You can find them on our marketplace, no problem. But we do strongly urge you guys check it out. Okay. Now onto the Evolve side, though. If you don't know about Evolve and what we do, Evolve is really much about pair groups. It was started with HCG years ago, Arlen Sorensen and whatnot, but it was very much about having everybody help each other, collaborate on using the same resources, collaborating on what to do best practices and whatnot. And what you'll see here is over the average for the MSPs that are part of this, part of SLI and part of Evolve, we've seen the compound annual growth being 18% greater, which I think is a great stat. And on the other side of it, you can see where EBITDA, which is a huge word in the space, especially if you're a company looking for acquisitions and whatnot, EBITDA is always a great conversation point. And from what I've seen, MSPs or even the companies that are looking to acquire MSPs, they put a strong emphasis on being a 25% or greater EBITDA, and you can see these guys are averaging 28%. Now, I know we have to go back to the previous slide here to talk about the vendors that are involved in this conversation today, because this is really about them and what they do to help complement Evolve. And by complementing Evolve, complementing our partners and being a bigger, stronger investment piece within our ecosystem. So we're going to talk to Crush Bank, Great America, and Hackware today. And I do want to make sure we stress all the speakers because these are people that are longstanding supportive people within our space. So if we can go on to the speakers here, we have Lori Berry. Again, I'm introducing these to you, but I feel like most of you guys that are watching this probably know these people. They are very active in the community elsewhere, not just with ConnectWise. But we have Lori Berry coming on from Great America Financial, Juan Fernandez from Hackware, and David Tan from Crush Bank. So I'm super stoked about having them on because these, like I said, these guys, this team here, this group of people, individuals, they've all been thought leaders. They've all helped businesses grow. They've been in a space for, I don't know how many years. We're just for the sake of, being very nice about it. They all average about 5 years in the space because they're all so young. With that said, I know we have some QR codes to showcase for you guys that you guys can access them on our marketplace right here. And again, if you're watching, take a snapshot of this, make sure you access them. You can see what they have to offer. I know also we have some people that are going to be offering some promotions and whatnot, but I strongly urge you guys go on, take advantage of the things that ConnectWise has done for this, to vet them out and to bring them to you all. With that said, we can start to bring on the guests if you guys would like. We're going to start with bringing on Lori Berry first. How are you doing?
Great, Sean. You're so kind. 5 years.
Well, I feel on that balance of like, if I really talk about your total experience, everybody's like, stop that. That's nonsense. And it's like, how about you just evolved very fast in our space,
Right.
you were off and running. So I would like to talk a little bit about, you're very active with ConnectWise, especially. I see you on the advisory board with us. You help us, almost part of the steering committee for ConnectWise, what we do. Along with you guys are avid sponsors Evolve, and you've been there doing this for a long time. So I don't want to take too much of your thunder. Tell us some more about you. Where are you from? What do you actually do for Great America?
Yeah, well, I'm from Iowa, and I've been in the channel for 20 years, and I've been with Great America for 14. And we've been with Evolve since 2010. Big advocate of Evolve in this space. And I think, and Aubrey can tell us if I'm wrong, but I think we were one of the first invent partners for ConnectWise as well. So, wow. And for Great America, I do get to work on our integrations, which is why I get to work with ConnectWise. I love what I do every day and help the TSPs to streamline their processes.
I appreciate that. But you all, and before we get into the company itself, but you're also part in Evolve. You work with the vendor peer group as well, do you not?
Yes, one of my favorite parts of my job.
Tell me why. I'm curious now.
Well, I think it's because we get to see what the members actually go through. So kind of peek behind the curtain. We go through the exact same 4 plans that the members go through in the rooms. And so the only thing we don't do is share financials, but I see them grow every quarter, and it's just kind of amazing. And they become go-givers, and they become part of the community instead of vendors.
Sure. I couldn't agree more. And I've been around this, and actually I met your employees a long time ago before I even knew you. And I agree. I feel like that the community we're all successful together far more than we are individually. And I don't know that in ConnectWise, our intent itself is to try to create this great ecosystem, having you all involved, because we can't solve every problem with one platform, that's for sure, but we can as a collective. And I think that's, like, you're such a major contributor. Like I said, I see you on more things now than I ever have with us. So you're like a huge contributor personally and professionally. So I'm curious, like, as far as Great America, how does that fall in line with us? Like, what do you guys do, and how's it complementary to ConnectWise?
For me being involved in
Great America, like the actual company itself.
Yeah, so Great America Finances is an equipment finance company. We're independently owned, and we started with HTG and then Evolve and then ConnectWise because we were learning, because we grew up in the office equipment space. So we've actually used this community to build our business unit around MSPs, TSPs, and that's why we are so active in the community. And it pays off in spades because we learn from them, they use us, we grow together, just like you said, better together.
Absolutely. And it's funny because you guys have been doing this for a long time, and the hardware as a service game has evolved tremendously over these years, right? And I know plenty of people in the space that try to do it, and hardware is expensive, certain things.
It is, and the fun part that we've learned from this community is we're also financing, and COVID helped with this, but we're also financing software and labor now.
That's okay. I'm new to learning this. So, okay. So can you give me a little bit more detail on how you're financing those? Software is relatively simple, I think, but
yeah. If you think about it, anything that's a one-time cost for the TSP, we can finance. So the big projects that go into moving to cloud, or any labor that the end user would pay cash for, we can finance.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so if it's one time, and I'm trying to ask questions like if I was a customer, I'm totally thinking about this all right now. So if they're financing this, we're a SaaS-based business, so it's never one time for software, right? So are you supporting SaaS models too, in a way? I guess if they pay annually, you are, no problem.
Yeah, if they pay annually or upfront for 3 years, and we're finding that it helps the TSP as well because they get the cash up front, and then we bill and collect over the monthly or annual payments.
Awesome. Okay, that's easy. That's simple. You guys have been around for a long time, so I'm assuming it's not hard to work with you all.
No, we're trying to make it easier through our integrations, and one of those is through CPQ, which I'm really excited about it because it came out in November, and that's the ability to submit an application. So we're trying to make it as easy as like clicking a button to calculate a payment, submit an app, get your documents signed, and then we pay you up front.
Gotcha. I love it. All right, cool. I think we've been on for a few minutes now. I'm going to take you off.
Okay.
We're going to bring up the next person, but you'll be back on in a few minutes to talk about more stuff. So.
Okay. Thanks, Sean.
Yep. Thanks, Lori. Up next, we're going to bring a friend of mine. We've been working for years. Look at this smiling face. Juan Fernandez. He's the global channel chief of Hackware. Yep. He's also like an author, co-author of some MSP books.
There is that.
He's also like almost the poster child for CompTIA. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, brother. I'm doing well.
Is there anything else we can probably just take you off the screen now. I think we've already done everything.
I think we're good.
So, all right. So let's talk about you a little bit. I did throw a few things out there for you as far as but You have a story. You have a good story behind you too. So I'd like to talk a little about you real quick, how you got where you are, and then we talk about Hackware too, real quick.
Yeah, one of the big things I think, is, I've been in the MSP space for quite some time. I've been in IT for over 28 years and been in the channel for 10 plus years now. And I claim most of that from when I built my last MSP, right? Went 0 to 20 in about 6 years. And, I learned a lot of lessons about what things, when I built that MSP, a lot of things that I did was learn about industry and the way they buy, right? And in order to be able to grow that thing as fast as I did, I understood what people bought. And the same thing goes for being an MSP, right? As I was an MSP, I had a very tight ship. I ran it a very unique way, built it for scale. And so as I exited that business and now came into the SaaS world to invest in a number of things and then ultimately become the global channel chief of Hackware, I was looking for the ways that we wanted to be dealt with on the MSP side. How do we want to be interacted with? The ways that we go to market? What are the ways that we want to deliver and build business and value? And I brought a lot of that to Hackware, and it's been really fun, man. And it's worked out well, and the product's awesome, and I really enjoy it. So it's just a quick little journey there, but
I like that. So can I dig in for a second though? Because you stress like the efficiency, effectiveness, and whatnot, making things easy. Like you always talk about that. As a matter of fact, one of your biggest talks you do is about the client journey ultimately, right? So with that, how does Hackware blend into these things?
I think the biggest thing we have to be thinking about as cybersecurity vendors in this new modern world, I talk about this new world of being managed, right? And when we start to think about what we're managing, you mentioned, we heard it for a moment ago from Lori, is that, there's this new software world, and there's a reason why Great America is pivoting toward that. And there's a reason why I'm at Hackware. There's all these things about these new, what I call value equations. How are we creating new value equations for the managed service provider? And cybersecurity is a really big one, right? And so when you think about the new ways we can monetize, to Lori's point, hardware is a thing and hardware as a service I was talking about has years ago. That was one of the ways. But now there's this new world of cybersecurity and software. And that's why Hackware is so important, is because now it's able to give, the modern MSP the ability to educate the customer on what should they do and what shouldn't they be doing, and really taking an important seat at the table, such as my background, right? That's why I have this, because it's all about the seat at the table, right? And so it's just, we're trying to do the right thing for MSPs to bring that unique value so that they can get that unique seat. That's really that's what we're creating.
So I can appreciate that. And Lori said something about, and I think this is applicable to actually all three of the guests today, being the go-giver and the servant leader. You're active in the space in different areas, and so is Hackware now. Like before you were with Hackware, I didn't know what Hackware was, and a lot of us did. You're a startup, so I get it. So you're also part of the Pitch It program too. So that's my shameless plug for Pitch It.
Go Hackware, Pitch It 2023.
So you keep this company and yourself very much engaged in the space.
Yeah.
And back to the evolve piece, which is obviously the same thing we're talking about, which is peer groups. Why do you do all this?
It's all about giving back, right? It's all about, I think the products have to win on their own merit, right? If they're good enough to go, then people are going to be attracted to them. And if they're delivering value and adding margin and EBITDA, to your point earlier, as you mentioned, on something else, it's ultimately how are we creating value for our partners, and really also for us, like we're all about education. So teaching MSPs on how to it's not about the product, right? It's about how do I go to market and make money with this and create these new conversations and talk tracks with my customers so that I can find success, because I run an MSP business. I know how hard it is to get no's all day long. So my job is to educate, and Evolve allows me to do that. And I love the fact that we can do that there, because I've had a boardroom where somebody says, Juan, why are you teaching us how to sell? And I'm like, because if I teach you how to position the product, then you can actually go to market with it, versus hearing about mine and then hoping that you understand how to take that to market. I'll just help you through the process. And that's really what's been really fun. And I really enjoy the Evolve community. It's been very embracing for us, and it's just been really fun, man.
I love it. I appreciate that. Cool. All right. We're going to kick you off, and we're going to bring you back for the final question. Yeah, I know. I don't even run the operations. That's my behind the scenes.
They're kicking me off anyways. They say Juan's got to go.
Juan's got to, exactly. So we're going to kick you off for a few minutes. we'll bring you back on as soon as we finish up with our next guest here.
All right.
Great. Thanks, Juan. So up next, and I'm gonna put a caveat out on this, because and I'll explain to him, and he'll appreciate it, I feel like. But up next is David. We're bringing David Tan on he's a CTO of Crush Bank. Stellar guy. The only thing that's not so stellar is he's a Michigan alum. It's not his fault. I figure it was a young decision where you didn't know any better.
I have no regret, Sean. No regret.
And I as an Ohio State guy,
Well, let's say I'm glad we did this now and not 2 years ago. So this has been a much more difficult conversation a couple of years ago.
Well, you've had 2 good years against us. I don't anticipate any more. I feel like our Achilles heel for you for the last 2 years was our quarterback didn't play as well, and our secondary. I don't know what happened, but we'll talk about that over drinks one day.
I was going to say, we could spend the next 10 minutes talking about college football. I'd be fine with that also. My marketing team might get a little upset with me. So.
Right. And yeah, ConnectWise will not be happy with me if I don't actually talk about you guys. And again, it's like the little brother thing I got going on now. You're Michigan, they're going to put you in, and only take care of you. So with that said, though, let's talk a little about you. You've been around for a while. You've done some really cool things, and being the co-founder here of Crush Bank, which, by the way, the name itself sounds great, right? I feel like it's almost like a Red Bull commercial being ready to make happen with Crush Bank, right? So tell me a little about your journey, how you got here today, you yourself personally.
Sure. So I come from the MSP world, like most vendors in this space. My business partner and I started our first IT company back in 1993, so a little bit more than 5 years, unfortunately. And we made our bones back in the day selling this little known operating system called Windows NT that Microsoft was giving away for free. Right. And that was before anyone knew what managed services even was. And over the years, the business evolved. We got into managed services. We got into cloud services. We got into cybersecurity, typical journey. And honestly, a lot of it was driven by being in peer groups, right? Which is one of the reasons we're so involved and we believe so heavily in Evolve. I'll tell you a funny story that before he started HTG and then eventually morphed into Evolve, Arlen was in our peer group. So we kind of started together on that peer group journey. Obviously went different directions. He's done some incredible things. So, but we're huge believers and supporters in the community. And I just love the model of an MSP, what MSPs have to do. And I just like being involved. So that's why we decided to morph into the software side once we exited the MSP side.
I totally agree on all the above. So let's talk a little bit about, and I even question, do people even know what MSPs really are today?
Right.
But okay, so the company itself, what does it really do for the MSPs and for us too? I think is a good question for.
Sure. So we're basically an AI knowledge management and service delivery optimization platform. So basically, what that means is that we try to use artificial intelligence, large language models, machine learning to optimize how you need to deliver support. So that's everything from creating tickets and categorizing tickets. So things like type, subtype, and item, or budget, or priority, things like that. Also finding previous answers to tickets, right? So if a ticket comes in that something has been solved in the past, we proactively put that information in front of your tech's face when they're working on the ticket. Or if they need to find a configuration or a document that's hidden inside of a system. Or we have a bunch of workflows built in where if that information doesn't exist, it's really easy to request it. So kind of the idea is to build an end-to-end solution where you're not only optimizing the data you have, but making sure you have complete data and finding it quickly and easily.
Perfect. So you're essentially curating the experience for tech.
Right, exactly.
So on-demand content.
Right, from whatever sources of information you have in your organization, right? So whether they're tickets from PSA, whether they're configs that live in configuration management, whether it's a document in SharePoint, doesn't matter to us. We bring them all together in one view for you to find quickly and easily.
Awesome. And where does that display for me? If I'm the tech and I'm working right now, and sometimes it gets very hectic, right? So,
yeah.
So where am I going to see this?
So we have a few different ways to interact with it. The one that's most important to you as a tech is that we have a pod that lives right inside Manage. So right on the ticket screen, we put a little pod where the documentation pops up. So again, if you have an SOP that lives in SharePoint that's relevant to a ticket, it'll display right in the pod right next to the ticket that you're working on.
Awesome. That's impressive. Okay, great. All right. And your involvement with Evolve, like you said, you were part of the original peer group. So like
so
we Evolve.
Yeah, we started with the original peer group, and kind of like Juan said, I'm a very big believer in giving back, right? I would not have been as successful on the MSP side without peer groups. So we like being involved. We like to educate. We like to help people, especially being in AI. It's such a buzz right now, but even for the last couple of years, I want to help our clients understand the questions when their clients come to them. So Evolve's a great way for us to get in front of them in a boardroom, do some education, not just, pitch our product. Obviously, that's great, but really giving back. And then, quite frankly, I learn from the peer groups as well the other way. So anyone that thinks they're too smart or too old to keep learning is fooling themselves. So I love just having that one-on-one or one-to-many interaction where I can really learn from our customers and potential customers.
Amen to that part. I think being a perpetual student is extremely important. We're one person. We only know so much, and the rest I always like to be the dumbest person in the room. I'd rather be all smart people. So, all right. So let's bring everybody back on.
Softball, Sean. You went to Ohio State. Don't say something like that to me.
Well, we have to raise other people up that aren't quite the same level.
I wanted to let it go, but I just couldn't.
As you shouldn't. All right, so let's no, Greg, let's not go blue. Greg, no. Can we ban, can we ban Greg from this live stream? Okay, let's bring up everybody else and let's get into a conversation here. So let's bring Juan and Lori back on. All right, so first things first. Again, you guys are all part of Evolve. You're all part of the ConnectWise economy, the ecosystem, everything else, and you're all vendors, right? And I started with talking about the statistics from them, because I think talking about EBITDA and talking about growth, I think the biggest push from COVID was probably the best example of moving things forward, was really pushing that business continuity conversation, right? How they can stay moving without going out, and also noting that there's not one and all be all platform that can do everything for you, which is where you guys all come into play, right? So it's all about playing nice together, integrating, simplifying things, right? So, the collective, all of you, I want to start, let's dig into this percentage of growth that they have, because you guys are all a big part of this. We'll start with Lori, because Lori's the money person of all this, right? She's the one that you guys can't do anything if people can't pay for it, right? So with that, like, some experiences you have, and why do you think this has happened where we're seeing this great turnaround on 28% EBITDA for these companies?
Yeah, it's really fun when you look at all the numbers. Service leadership looks at all the numbers across, and then you see Evolve compared to them, and it's higher every single time. And then you add the service exec peer groups in, and it's higher. And Great America had a really unique spot during COVID. And we got to see, what the partners, end users did. And TSPs during COVID actually went up, and Evolve anyway, I'm not sure across the whole space. But that again shows that they worked together, they got through it, and their EBITDA went up during that time.
Absolutely. I would agree with that. I think we saw, funny, I had a conversation about digital transformation, and somebody said nobody really defined what that really meant, and I'm like, you're right. Like, I think it's different per person and per industry almost, right? Or who you serve, is because you can't ever be 100% digital, I don't think, for anything, right? At some point, maybe. I don't know. I don't know where yet. Let's just say that. And so with that, I'll come over to you, Juan. Even very good point about, as we get on this pathway in business continuity, let's say you got the money now because Great America took care of the money part, right? So where do you guys fall in line? Is how do you see EBITDA, and how do you see this growth happening? And you talk about the client journey, so I think they go hand in hand.
I think the biggest thing is I always talk about building a profit protection program. And I think during the pandemic, one of the biggest ways that we saw MSPs doing that was that all of a sudden the seat got solidified, right? We were now a foundational component, and managed services was foundational. The technology required to run that business became very apparent. And so customers, for the first time, I feel like managed services finally got in without conflict, right? Consumers came to the managed service provider and said, I need you to make this work, and I need to be secure, right? And so from that, they adopted a lot more products and services. And one of those components, like when we look at it from a Hackworth lens, one of the ways that we're trying to help uh, our partners, is by you giving them those high margin opportunities, 50% or more, right? So every little step and every vendor that you do business with, if you look at how you're making money and how you're running your business, if you're building on that along those lines at 50% margins, then you actually start to see your EBITDA creep up slowly and slowly and slowly, and you outpace your overhead, right? And so that's one of the things that when we looked at it from our perspective was like, how do we price and package our products right? And how do we help our partners make money? And that's where I also see a lot of vendors coming to the table. And Lori Price sees this quite a bit too in the vendor peer group. Is like, that's probably the thing, is like, what do I package and price my products as? And because I can see it from another lens coming from an MSP, it's like, look, I don't want to buy a product that I don't make money on. We already get burned by other products that we have to use in the ecosystem that are very low margin. And we don't want to do that anymore. So it's forcing us toward these higher margin products, which is increasing our EBITDA over time, which again, these, the large groups like Evolve have the ability, because you got these really mature vendors that are doing business with these groups of MSPs, which is in turn raising all tides there and that EBITDA line as well. So it's really cool to watch. And, for us, it's a big important thing. And again, like similar to like what we do with our 14-day free trial, like you can try us out for free and white label our product so you can get in front of your customers faster and not have any implementation of cost, right? So that you actually can make money really quickly by illustrating your proficiency in your product to your customers. And then I think that's where we're really starting to see a big shift, is vendors are getting in to help MSPs make more money. And that's where I think you're seeing this trend line go up.
I would agree with that. And I want to go one step further. This really involves David even the most, is, when we look at EBITDA, we look at, not just growth, but also how to cut costs, right? And a big part of that is automation and now AI, right? So, and this is your softball. I'm just lobbing it for you. So, and a big part of cost is labor. That's usually one of the biggest costs you have, right? And you sometimes, I've seen that there's been some bloated tech staffs, right? Some tech support staffs in some of these. And so for you guys, you kind of help to sort of remove a lot of the cost by automating things and making people more effective. Is that accurate?
Oh yeah, that's very accurate. So we really kind of approach it in a couple of different ways. So we certainly say that we make people more effective, more efficient by helping them solve problems faster, right? So finding things that were done previously, information presented in their face, not having to escalate, all those things. The other piece, though, is that, we're in a really difficult labor market. So even if you're not loaded, just trying to find people is really difficult, and trying to keep them is even more so, right? We see, I think CompTIA's last study showed an average of 46% turnover in IT jobs, right? And again, coming from someone that ran an MSP, and I know everyone on this call and everyone watching has the same experience, it would take 3, 4, 5 months to get someone up to speed and billable. We like to say we can cut that time down to a couple of weeks by presenting the information that they need to solve these problems really quickly. So by not only optimizing them, but also by being able to bring on people more quickly and have them scale faster, really powerful solution for an MSP that's facing a lot of labor cost challenges and labor retention challenges.
I love it. So, and what's that percentage again on the turnover you said?
46%.
46%. So how would that affect your EBITDA? Really think about that. So you're talking like, what did they say it costs now to hire, train, and everything, even if they're there for 30 to 60 days, you're losing like 30, 40 grand right off of that. And that depends on the caliber of person, right?
If you zoom out, the numbers get scary, right? If you zoom out and think you're turning over almost half your staff every year, that means you're building an entirely new staff every 2 years, and it's taking 3 to 4 months to get them onboarded. It's almost unsustainable in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. I think the other thing to take note of is that in this conversation for business continuity itself is in the enablement of your employees to be successful. Because one is culture. I know Juan, and I'll go to Juan first, and then I'm going to Lori after that. Juan, you talk a lot about culture. Yeah. And actually, you said a line to me one time. I think you probably said it more than one time even, but to me specifically, you said your best marketing is happy employees that talk about their job on social. Right? That's your best marketing as a business. So I feel like 46% turnover, how do you make it happen where you lower that percentage?
You just have to, I say this all the time, I create businesses, I create processes that enable people to be successful, that create amazing cultures, that grow amazing businesses, right? And when you go back and I talk about the employee journey, not just the customer journey, the employee journey all the time. What is it like to be an employee of your organization? Do you have your processes ironed out to a place where they can come in and feel like they're being successful? And I think that from that, I'll tell you this right now, the organization that I built, my MSP, there's almost every single one of the staff, except for the ones I took, are still there. Why? Because it created a culture of stay, right? And it created a culture of care. And that's where I think it's amazing when you do stuff like that. And that's where you reduce the churn. We used to say we create dream jobs. I'm doing it here at Hackware, right? Nobody wants to leave. We're winning. We're having a great time. The MSPs love to do business with us. Like, it's just a good place to be. And when you create those things, and I give kudos to Tiffany because she created that even before I was here. And I saw it and I was like, there's something special. And I think that really matters a lot. So you can really, depends on how you build the company, right? If you're building it for whatever you're building it for, but if you stop and think about what's happening in your employee lens, you can change a lot and you can make a company really fun.
Absolutely. So I'm coming to you now, Lori, because one thing is, Juan pointed out, as far as he said, yeah, make it fun and everything else. But the one thing he said is winning, right? When you're a winning culture, you can't have a winning culture if you don't have the resources and everything readily available and the processes and everything, right? It has to be a perfect storm. And this even ties into the servant leadership piece, right? So give us some tips on what you guys do internal, but also for MSPs, because again, back to the money, and money's important. But, buy stuff. I've been in the problem of not being able to sell things because we couldn't buy something because we didn't have the money for it at the time, right? So I'd like to get your take on some of this.
Yeah, well, a couple things. Last quarter, one of the hot topics was bench strength from your leadership. So growing your bench strength and being able to know that you are going to have good leaders in the years coming up. But another one was hiring or retaining good talent. And so have you heard of the Ticket to Tech program from CompTIA? Make sure you check that out because they're placing apprentices. And so that's one way the community is helping, and they're starting with Evolve. So that's a great program to look into. And then Great America is also working on growing bench strength, and I think doing a really nice job of growing leaders. Our founder is, going to retire someday, even though we don't want him to. And they're growing up leaders beneath.
So do you think that going into this, and I love using COVID because COVID's a big deal. I think it changed everything. So do you think that when you were, and I'm going to start with you again, Lori, coming out of COVID, you guys probably literally had to revamp some things, right? Did you, and the remote workforce was difficult for, I don't care who they were, big companies, small companies, everybody struggled. I think that when you guys addressed this, how did you address coming out of COVID to stay consistent, to stay relevant, and to not have 48% turnover also, by the way, or even 75% in some cases during COVID?
Right. We're still working on it. We did bring people back in the office. So certain teams are coming back, and we're doing about 50% now. So we were all at home, and now we're at about 50% back in the office. So we're choosing days so that we can all be together. And we just found that we needed to do that for the culture. It's really hard to keep it up the way it was. We had no remote workers, or hardly any, before COVID. So we went extreme one way, and now we're kind of coming back. But I think it's also really important to be flexible there. So we're trying to do a good job of the hybrid so that we can account for those who have to be remote, and then do a good job of our technology and being able to communicate with those.
Absolutely. I lived it, did it. We all did. It's great,
Yeah.
So, and with, I want to move over to you, David. When you guys went through COVID, again, I think one of the hardest challenges for most people when they start working remote was accessing resources to do their job, accordingly. And a lot of times I would get my information from the person sitting next to me. Like, did you ever see this before? Did you ever get this question? Because I don't know what this is, or what, just simple stuff. So, I would imagine even your go-to-market switched a little bit, but also was so complementary to this.
Yeah, very much so. So that was definitely a huge opportunity for us, where again, the crutch you used to have of turning to the person next to you or behind you or walking up to the water cooler, like, the old adage says, and asking someone a question kind of disappeared for 3 years. And in most cases, a lot of cases, rather, hasn't come back. So having all of that previous experience, all those lessons learned, all of that at your fingertips in a system became really powerful. The other thing that I think that we've been able to do is by standardizing and optimizing your data. So I mentioned things like budget and subtype, and item. By using a machine learning model to categorize that stuff, I'm not trying to get too technical here. By using a machine learning model to categorize that stuff, you now have a set of standards so you can really monitor and manage the people that are working remotely. Like ticket budget is one of my favorite features in PSA that nobody uses because it's really difficult to pay someone or to have someone fill out that time. But it's such a great way to see, is someone working efficiently? Are they cherry picking tickets? Are they wasting time? Are they working 2 jobs? Like there's a bunch of things that could happen, but nobody takes advantage of it because it's really difficult. So we were super excited again during COVID when we were able to roll out a feature to auto populate that budget based on previous tickets for that company. So just a really powerful way to help managers manage their organization and give people access to the data that you lost when you weren't sitting next to somebody, like you said.
Absolutely, that's perfect. And Juan, we'll finish up the COVID conversation even for you guys because you weren't with Hackware at that time.
Mm-hmm.
You were doing God knows what you were doing, 10 other things, of course. I mean, everything in it. I mean, seriously. But I'd like to use your expertise on this, referencing because you're so actively engaged in the community. What was the advice? What was given as far as staying on one track and getting people to work more effectively?
Here's the thing, right? So when I initially started my managed services practice, we were remote from day one, and I did that in person. In really, truth be told, because I wanted to build a company like where I worked. Right, I lived in Durango, Colorado. Our office was many miles away, and most of my staff was remote. So we started on that foundation. So when COVID hit, it really wasn't much of a shock in the managed services space. Because we were already remote. We were built to be remote. And so I didn't suffer that much. If anything, we had learned so many lessons. We were able to help customers with their approaches to how to be remote and really some of the best practices and, hey, here's the ways you shouldn't do. And really that educational component. But to that point, a lot of that learning has come into a lot of what I'm doing now with Hackware. It's we don't necessarily need to be there. You just have to be available. You have to create those spaces that work really well to collaborate. You need to be available on a number of times and hours. We have people that are not necessarily, we have people that travel all over the US that live in different time zones on a continual basis. So it's just really creating that culture of this new way to pivot business, right? And that is actually an inspiration. Somebody asks me all the time, they're like, dude, you're all over the place. Like how? And it's like, well, I live that way, right? But I manage my time in that way, and I'm available at all the time. So to your point, I mean, it's just what we do, and it's just a new world that we live in.
I agree, and I want to bring it to final comments from you guys on this in closing from you all, which is the relevancy of all this and why people should be looking you guys up on the marketplace or attending Evolve. I think the collaboration is crucial in this case, not just amongst the technologies, but amongst the friends, right? I think that's a big part of how I found successes from meeting you all and other people, and have said, and been that perpetual student, said, how do I do better with these things? Where do I go for this stuff? What should I do, right? And I don't want to say best practices because some people say we hate hearing the term best practices, but there is a level of truth to having best practices, right? So with that, I'm going to just start with you, Juan, so you can close off on it and give your parting words and advice on these things.
I will say this though, it's been quite an interesting journey, right? Being part of the, Invent program and being part of ConnectWise, I don't think everybody recognizes the amount of effort that goes into being part of that, and the reason why, right? We, all of us, I think, that are here to meet our partners where they're at, right? You guys are using ConnectWise as a tool, and we go through quite a daunting process to actually make it into there. We go through a security audit, we go through all these things to get to that point, but it's really our dedication to the partnership, right? And I think that isn't illustrated all the time. It's just like, okay, there's another vendor in the marketplace, but there's an effort that goes into making it that way. And again, for us that are here on this call, again, paving that path forward to educating, and then again, helping, grow your business and helping them with, their organizational structures and design, and really helping them build their organization and culture and businesses. That's our commitment, right? And I think that's oftentimes things that get missed. And I want to say kudos to ConnectWise for having us and creating the programs that allow us to do these things, because that's what community is about. And I really appreciate that there is a level and an effort that we have to go through. It's not just to open to anybody. You have to actually, really focus and give back and really push to get in there. And I appreciate that. So, with that being said, we're really proud to be a part of the, not only invent, but evolve, and then also pitch it. IT Nation. I mean, there's a number of things that we're involved with in it, including ConnectWise Share, Go Central Mafia. Give a shout out to Juan Mack and crew down there.
That's very cool.
You know what I mean? So there's just a number of things. If you're part of the community and you're helping improve those outcomes, it's an amazing place, and it's all about what you make it. So, I hear all the times from vendors, how do you do it? And it's like, you just get started and get involved.
Thank you, Juan. I'm not sure anyone else can add to this, because you just literally took everything from everybody. Like,
that's just my talk.
Like, I felt like the next thing, like, we're Lori's like, yeah, I'm just happy to be here. Thank you. And every day, so Lori, try your best to not cover anything that Juan didn't cover. Maybe we can talk about your best year in high school or something. I don't know. What did you major in college? I don't know. So no, again, and considering you're one of the longest standing probably of the companies in ConnectWise ecosystem, I think that, that's something we said. You're one of the first to be part of the certified integrated program. What are your thoughts on this? And I mean, again, whatever Juan didn't say, I don't know. Just try your best.
Everything Juan said, and then I'm going to go back to the peer group really quick, because it was really fun. So I lead or facilitate the vendor or solution partner peer group, and you would see them saying, okay, you're good at this, I'm good at this, and then they'd come together and they do webcasts together and they talk to partners together, and then we crossed groups, which there's some competition, and it's just really fun to see. So I think just collaborating all together would be the only thing I'd add.
Right. I would agree. I think I sat through some of the vendor and the MSP peer groups, and I think that my biggest takeaway from that is it is a meeting with friends that aren't afraid to tell you you're wrong, and for that you all get a actual you all commit to something. And so I think probably and I worked with lots of startups and lots of entrepreneurs. I think that the most difficult thing is being able to hold the entrepreneur accountable for what we agreed upon, and sometimes it's because your voice isn't strong enough, but to have a whole room of voices, it changes everything. It takes away the heat sometimes from the employee, right? So I agree. The peer group itself is phenomenal for that case, and then you guys being integrated into all of our stuff makes it easier, because again, they're all looking for one-stop shop. So now last words from you, David, even though and Go Blue can't be part of that. So,
I'll skip that.
Yeah. So any thoughts?
I mean, not much to add to what Juan and Laurie said, but I will just say this really quickly. So ConnectWise is an incredibly important partner for us in a multitude of ways. We're really proud to be part of the event program. We're really proud to be a sponsor at Evolve. We're at IT Nation every year. As an MSP, excuse me, I'm probably preaching to the choir for the most people watching this, but ConnectWise is probably the single biggest, most important vendor in your organization. And you really should take advantage of everything they have to offer, right? So go to the events, join the peer group, join a user group, watch the webinars. Like, I can't emphasize enough. I saw one comment come through the comments about the knowledgeable panel, and I agree. The three of you are incredibly knowledgeable. It's an honor to share a webinar with you, but these are the resources that ConnectWise has available and brings to bear. So talk to other people, learn lessons. No reason to repeat either mistakes or overlook things that other people have done in the past. So that would be my biggest parting advice, is just take advantage of the resources that ConnectWise makes available, because they're incredibly powerful.
I agree. And I think that if anything that vendors and MSPs take away from this is that you all are complementary, and if they're all looking for help, there's multiple levels. There's the peer group of MSPs, but then there's also a lot of the vendors, even like for pitch, over 60% of them are MSPs are or were. So I mean, again, I think sometimes, and most of my friends are MSPs, they always think that you guys are sort of out of touch with them, but I couldn't think of people that are more in touch with the needs, because you were once a startup, or you were once an MSP, and again, another startup in some cases. And again, you're all looking to solve one mission, whatever it is. And that's the simplicity of doing business, giving them what they need resource-wise. So totally agree with that. All right, well, thank you all. I have a couple parting words to talk about, because I have to make sure I highlight who people can contact if they want to be involved. But thank you guys for taking time. I appreciate it. You guys are awesome.
Thanks, Sean.
You know what, Juan? You're welcome. And thank you for taking all everybody else's stuff. So again, if you guys want to learn more about their companies, you can go onto the QR codes here. It'll take you in. You can learn about their products. You can learn about them. Also, you can they're all over LinkedIn and all that stuff too. It's not hard to find these guys. So if you say you can't find them, you're full of it. But make sure you do check them out. Also, they all will be sponsoring or being involved with Evolve in Denver, and that's going to be August 7th to the 11th, and that will be the Q3 meetup for Evolve. So if you guys are interested in that, though, these are the people you can contact if you want to learn more in your MSP about Evolve and being a partner, joining the actual peer group. On the right is Jody Hicks. You can reach out to him. Actually, probably the nicest people ever. If he's not watching his kids play softball for 24 hours a day, he is very good with everything. If you're looking to be part of the Certified Integrator program that all three companies here are, you're going to get with Aubrey. You can email invent@connectwise.com, whether it's Aubrey or Jess or Andrea. One of them will all get to you and tell you what it's all about. And if you're looking to sponsor Evolve and also IT Nation Connect, or one graciously talked about even our user groups, Devine as the person you want to reach out to. If for those of you who don't know, ConnectWise gives a plethora of ways for you guys to connect and integrate and to be complementary. So I hope you all take advantage of these resources. And Aubrey loves if you post her picture on social media everywhere, just so you know. She's a very vocal person. So anyway, that's all we have for today. Thank you guys again. Thank you for all that watched. Looking forward to seeing you on the next time we do this, which will probably be in the next few weeks. Toodles.